May I proceed?
You may.
Can you please introduce yourself to the jury?
Dr. Francis Reese Warren.
Where are you currently employed?
I'm the Department Chair of Linguistics at Midland State University.
Can you please tell the court a bit about your education?
I received my PhD from Georgetown University in the field of forensics and its application to law. I also received my Bachelor's of Science degree from the University of North Carolina, Charlotte, where I got my degree in linguistics and English.
What type of research have you conducted?
I have conducted research in linguistics and its applications to undercover investigations and law. I have published 37 peer-reviewed on the subject, and I have also articles on the subject, and I have also taught in the subject.
Dr. Warren, in layman's terms, what is it that you do?
Well, basically what I do is I read over undercover operations, the conversations that go by in these operations, to determine if there's any undue deceit or lying or entrapment. I'm basically here to make sure that the investigation proceeds legally.
Have you ever testified in court before?
Yes, I've testified approximately 23 times. All have been for the defense in alleged entrapment cases. This is my first testifying for the prosecution.
What is it that brings you here today?
I was contacted by Mr. Bancroft's attorneys. They provided me with $10,000 as per my usual fee to look into their entrapment case. When I published my results and I gave it to them, they asked me not to testify. I was then contacted by the state.
What materials were you given to review in regards to today's case?
I was given a conversation that occurred on March 31st between Mr. Hyde, Mr. Bancroft, and Officer Keenan. I was also given an email exchange between Officer Keenan and Mr. Hyde, along with the affidavits of Officer Keenan and Mr. Hyde.
Did you use sufficient facts and data in producing your analysis?
Yes.
Did you use reliable principles and methods?
Yes, I did.
And did you reliably apply those principles and methods to the facts of today's case?
Yes, I did.
What are those methods that you used?
I did a transcript review, a contrastive analysis, a topic content analysis, and a response analysis.
What is a transcript review?
A transcript review is when a linguist reads over a transcript of a conversation to determine if entrapment had occurred. The multiple things I look for is open-ended questions, ambiguous language, the flow of conversation, coaching, and lying.
What is a topic content analysis?
Topic content analysis can use to determine who controlled the flow of conversation at what points in time throughout the period of the conversation.
What is a contrastive analysis?
A contrastive analysis is basically used to determine whether coaching had occurred.
And finally, what is a response analysis?
Response analysis analyzes the subject's responses to the questions or the statements made previously in the conversation.
Let the record reflect that I am approaching opposing counsel with prosecution's proposed Exhibit 3.
It will.
Would your honors like a courtesy copy of this?
Sure.
Dr. Ward, what have I just handed you?
You handed me a transcript of a conversation that occurred on March 31st.
Is this a fair and accurate copy of this conversation?
Yes, it is.
And did you use this conversation in conducting your analysis?
I did.
I now move to admit prosecution's proposed Exhibit 3 into evidence.
Any objections?
No objection, Your Honor.
Okay, it will be admitted.
Dr. Warren, how did you apply your methods to this document?
Well, what I first did is I provided a transcript review. And the first thing I look for, I look for open-ended questions, ambiguous language, the flow of conversation, lying, and coaching.
Did you notice any open-ended questions?
I did. I noticed in the beginning Officer Keenan had used multiple open-ended questions. And these are used to drop subtle hints of the crime, so the subject may incriminate themselves in any way. This is exactly the type of behavior we want to see our law enforcement using.
Did you notice anything else?
Yes, I also noticed there was one instance of coaching between Officer Keenan and Mr. Hyde.
Now, did this one instance of coaching give you any reason to conclude that entrapment had occurred?
No, it had not.
What is something else that you looked for?
I looked for ambiguous language.
What does this mean?
Ambiguous language is, by its very nature, is when the subject uses vague language, answering open-ended questions with vague or open-ended answers.
Did you notice any ambiguous language in this transcript?
No, there was no ambiguous language found in this transcript.
Now, something you previously mentioned is the flow of conversation. Can you explain to the jury what you mean by this?
The flow of conversation is what subjects or what topics are used in the conversation and how it drives the conversation towards certain topics or answers.
And what was the flow of conversation in this transcript?
In my report, I made a chart to illustrate this, but basically, Officer Keenan had introduced three major topics in the beginning. Then Mr. Hyde had introduced one in the middle. Then Mr. Bancroft introduced three more major topics. This shows that law enforcement did not overly control the flow of conversation throughout this exchange of language. But again, since the conversation was equal, I could not determine whether entrapment did or did not occur.
May I tender this document to the bench?
You may.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, Dr. Warren, something that you mentioned earlier was reluctance. Can you please explain what you mean by this?
Reluctance is basically when a subject is, by definition, reluctant to answer or their answers are hesitant. This can be showing signs of lack of entrapment or lack of interest towards the conversation.
In your professional opinion, does Mr. Bancroft show any reluctance to the plan discussed in the transcript?
No. All of Mr. Bancroft's responses were very definitive, with answers like yes, no, or okay. Very definitive.
Something else that you had previously mentioned is lying. Did either Officer Keenan or Mr. Hyde use lying as a means of entrapment?
No. There was no evidence to show that Officer Keenan or Mr. Hyde had used lying as a method for entrapment.
Dr. Warren, can you tell us today, with any degree of professional certainty, that entrapment occurred?
No.
Thank you. I have no further questions for this witness.
Defense?